and welcome to my channel, Distinctive Crochet. My name is Priscilla, and I would like to thank all my new subscribers for coming to check me out, and all my returning subscribers for spending some time with me. Alright everyone, so today's video, I am actually going to be sharing with you some knitting materials and tools because I would like to do a series on how to knit. So I am a crocheter first, and then I learned to knit, and I really enjoy both, but as I'm getting more practice with my knitting, I am really enjoying that, and I'm really excited to try new things with that, and I was hoping that you all will come along this journey with me. So I decided to go ahead and share my experiences with knitting with you all and how to get started with your knitting. And I am going to be doing this from a crocheter's perspective, so I hope this is something that will be extra helpful to all of my crochet friends out there who are interested in learning how to knit. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is go over some of the tools and materials that you will need to get started with knitting. So this style of knitting that I'm going to be doing is actually called Portuguese knitting, and it's just, there's only one material, or there's only one tool that you may need that's out of the ordinary from other materials that you would normally need with knitting. And I'll get to that in a little bit, but first let me just show you some tools. So you guys probably have seen these before, and these are just some straight knitting needles. Now these knitting needles do come in a variety of lengths, so let me show you. All right, so you have some longer ones and some shorter ones, and I had actually purchased mine from the Goodwill, so there will be two measurements on there when you see the packaging. The first measurement will be, hold on, let me see if I can grab, sorry about that. So let's see. Okay, so for example, let me show this camera as well. So for example, you have okay, so it says size 7 and it says 14 inches. So the size 7 is going to be the circumference of the needle. So that means that the width of your stitches will be the same size that a 7 would give you. Okay, and then the second number is the inches in length of the needle. So these are a 14-inch length needle. Usually they do come, these are older pairs, so they usually do come in a smaller length. And when you're beginning knitting, that might be a better choice for you to get a shorter needle so that the length of the needle doesn't get in your way. These are really great for bigger projects if you're knitting flat, like a larger size sweater, or if you're making like maybe blanket squares or something that you wanted to patch together. So these are really good for bigger projects like that. But to get started, you might want to start off with a smaller length of a needle. So the other thing that they have are these double pointed needles. So these double pointed needles here are actually they have a point on either side. So if we look back at the these other knitting needles, so you can see there's like these little things on the back of them, and those are the stoppers, and that way your stitches won't fall off the needle as you're knitting. But these have a point on both sides, and actually these are normally purchased in a set of 4. So here is the set of 4, and these are normally purchased in a set of 4, and then that way you can use these to knit in the round. So especially if you're knitting something smaller like a cuff or a neckband, or even like a baby hat or something like that. And what you do is you separate the stitches on 3 of the needles, and then with the 4th one you'll knit the stitches. So And then again, it has the size. So it says size 6 and 7 inches in length. So yes, those are the double point needles. Now, more recently, they have come up with the circular needles. Now, these are my favorite needles to use when I'm knitting. Not this particular pair. As I stated before, I had just bought like a bunch of needles from the Goodwill just to get me started. So this was one of the pairs that had come in there, and this is a circular needle. So this says a 29-inch knitting needle, and it says a size 8, which is a 5mm. So the 5mm are really good for when you're working with worsted weight yarn, and this the cord would be more for like a sweater or maybe a baby blanket, because a 29 inches is too big for a hat. So that would be something that you would use for that. But these here, so the one thing I do like about these is that when it comes to the join is pretty smooth, but you do have this little bump here, but it's not too bad. But the one thing about this is you can see that the cord is not really friendly. Like, it kind of bounces back to how it was. So this one here is another circular needle, but this cord is a little bit more flexible. I know these are more common, but they say that if you dip them in warm water, they can kind of relax a little bit. I've never tried that before, so I can't really say if it works or not. But I had actually purchased these. This is a interchangeable set that I purchased, and I got a bunch of different sizes and a bunch of different cords with it, and a lot of them are missing now because I have them in different projects. But so with the interchangeable set is you get these tips, and then you get the cords, and then you can twist these tips on as needed. And it's really nice because you can also like if you're knitting a sweater or something like that, sometimes you need to use more than one size of a needle. So they also come with these, with this key here, and that will help you. You just stick the key in the hole here, and then that'll give you leverage to tighten this up where it doesn't come off. And then if you need to put your stitches on hold, you can use these stoppers here, just like the straight needles already came with, and then that way your stitches won't fall off your project. So I would invest in a interchangeable set once you realize that knitting is something that you want to do and you're really comfortable with it. But just starting out, you might want to go with the single sets for just projects and the sizes that you need at the moment, just to try them out, because interchangeable sets can be a bit pricey. And as you work with the different needles, you'll really find out what it is that you really like and what you don't like. And more recently, I have purchased a pair of these. These are called the Chiagu red lace, and this cord is really flexible as well. It doesn't like hold a curl in it. So these are for sock knitting. So along with the circular needles, you can also knit smaller projects with a longer cord, and that technique is called the magic loop technique. And it's where you divide your stitches, and then you just you divide your stitches evenly on either needle, and then you'll have a bit of the cord coming out on this side, and then you'll loop the other cord on that side. I'll probably explain more of that in a separate tutorial, maybe later on down the road once we get the hang of this knitting. So I just wanted to explain that as well. So those are some of the different tools that you would need. And the cords also do come in different sizes. So this is even a smaller cord, and this was actually for sock knitting. But as I was saying, I had purchased these instead so I can do that loop method on the longer cord, because that worked out better for me. but the cords do come in different lengths, so you want to make sure that you're purchasing the cord length that you need for your project. So those are some of the different tools that you will need. Now for the tutorial that I wanted to share with you all, I was going to be working up a hat. So the size cord that you will need would be the 16-inch cord, and we'll be using the size 5 needles. I'm sorry, not size 5, but the 5mm, and it's a US 8. So this is the one that I'll be working with here. Now the cord itself isn't 16 inches, but from tip to tip, that is 16 inches. So as long as your package says 16 inches and a 5mm needle, that is the size that I will be using for the project. Now, if you don't have circular needles and you just have straight needles, I will be doing a separate tutorial on that, probably for a scarf or something. But I really wanted to show you guys how to knit in the round, because that way you can practice your knit stitches, and then they will look more like this with the it's called stockinette stitch. Now this is actually a ribbed hat, but in between the stockinette stitches you have these pearls here, and when you knit on the front side of a flat piece, you'll have the stitches that look like this. But when you turn and you knit on that side, then you'll be making these kind of stitches on that front side again. So it becomes what is called a garter stitch. And when you're knitting, it doesn't, when I learned to knit, or when I was thinking about knitting, this stockinette stitch is the stitch that I was thinking about. And I'm like, this is the stitch that I wanted to see. But when you knit back and forth, you get a garter stitch, and it doesn't really look like the knitting that most of us have in mind. So I wanted to do a hat in the round, and then that way you would see those stockinette stitches, and you can get more familiar with what your knitting is supposed to look like. So once we do the stockinette body of the hat, we will go back and work the rib of the bottom of the hat, and then that will look more like this here for the ribbing part. But we will get to that later on in the tutorial. So this is what you will need, this size needle here. So once again, it is a 5mm needle and a 16-inch cord. So if you just buy the single needle, it'll come in a package something like this, and it'll just be you know, bundled up in that package there. So that is something that you will need to look for. Also, for the particular Portuguese style knitting, this is a knitting pin. Now you don't have to have this to knit Portuguese style. This is something that is a choice. I don't particularly use these unless I'm doing color work in knitting, because then you can use 2 different pins and have the 2 different colors working at the same time without getting them tangled. So this is a good idea to invest in at some point, but it's not necessary to get started, because the yarn is actually wrapped around your neck, and that is what gives you the tension. And because of that, you have less tension on your hands, so it makes it more enjoyable and less stress on your hands. So you don't need to have these. You can just wrap the yarn around your neck. But if you feel like that's something that's going to be irritating to you, then I will go ahead. I purchased these on Amazon, but the lady who actually brought the Portuguese style knitting for the majority of the part for the teaching style, she has a YouTube channel, and I will link down below a video where she talks more about the knitting pins and where you can purchase them from. So I will link that down below. But I'm going to be showing you more from a crocheter's perspective on how to get started with this style of knitting. So speaking of that, for our tutorial, you will also need to use a 5mm crochet hook, and I'm going to ask you to use some worsted weight yarn and make a chain of 84 and then slip stitch the chain together. And then when we come back to begin the tutorial, we will use that to be the base of our hat, because I'm not going to show you guys how to cast on just yet. Like I said, I want to just get you right in and start knitting, and that way you'll be more excited to move on to the next step. So you'll get the knitting the knitting part out of the way, and then we can move on to the next part for casting on and how to work the purl stitches. All right, so I hope that information was helpful for you today, and please meet me back for our next part in the series, which is actually going to be beginning the tutorial for the hat working in the round. Now, like I said, if you only have the straight needles at this point, I will be doing something with the straight needles after, but I did want to begin with this hat first. All right, so thanks again for watching. And if you have any questions down, please leave them in the comments down below, and I will do my best to answer them for you. All right, thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.